and you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Cecil Taylor, his biography, and best hits. Cecil Taylor was born in 1929 in Queens, New York, and right from the very start, his world was music. Classical piano lessons as a kid, soaking up all those European modernist composers, Bartók, Stockhausen, you name it. And he wasn't just a pianist, he was a composer, a poet, a creator of whole universes of sound. But here's what makes him great. His playing, it's percussive and totally physical. People have called it 88-tune drums because when he plays the piano, he doesn't just make notes, he moves the piano. He basically invented a whole new way of thinking about jazz, mingling free jazz, classical techniques and avant-garde experimentation into this wild, beautiful chaos. And his influence, massive. Every avant-garde musician, experimental composer, you can hear a bit of Taylor in them. Now, if you're wondering what this actually sounds like, strap in. We've got albums like Jazz Advance, his debut that shook the jazz world in 1956. Then there's Unit Structures, pure free jazz genius with his unit. Jimmy Leon's on alto sax, Sonny Murray on drums, just creating storms of sound. And he doesn't sleep on Silent Tongues, a solo masterpiece where he takes you on this mind-bending virtuosic journey. Or Fly, 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 which is more intimate but still totally him, full of quiet intensity and melodic depth. Cecil Taylor isn't just a jazz musician, he's one of the boldest, most daring voices in music history. And that was some insight into the biography and best hits of Cecil Taylor. More details coming up. Also coming up, some trending festival and album news. Stay tuned to the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva to find out more. We'll be right back after some music. During this summer, we're going to be talking about his biography. Cecil Taylor was born in 1929 in Queens, New York. His mother was a dancer and a musician, so she got him on piano at age 6. Not just piano lessons, but really steeped in classical music. He wasn't just playing jazz, he was merging it with everything that he knew from classical, avant-garde, European, modernistic stuff. At the conservatory in Boston, he got into composers like Bartók and Stockhausen, and that's where his experimental side really started to bloom. In 1956, he dropped his debut album Jazz Advance. He was already pushing boundaries, mingling hard bop with what would later become free jazz. Later, albums like Unit Structures, released in 1966, and Silent Tongues, released in 1974, cemented him as a free jazz pioneer. He had these longtime collaborators too, Jimmy Leon's on sax and Sonny Murray on drums, and together they formed the Cecil Taylor unit. They were like a living, breathing machine of improvisation until Leon passed in 1986. His style, he's percussive, almost like he's trying to play the piano with his whole body. People call it 88-tune drums because that's how intense and physical his playing was. He'd throw in tone clusters, wild polyrhythms, and the sheer energy that made every performance feel like a performance of the art piece. Sometimes he'd integrate dance and poetry. He even composed a ballad called Tetra Stomp, Eating Rain in Space for Baryshchenko. Recognition-wise, he got all the big honors, NEA Jazz Masters in 1990 and the Kyoto Prize in 2013. And his influence, massive. Every avant-garde jazz player, experimental musician, even contemporary classical composers, they all have a bit of Taylor in their DNA. Critics loved him for his uncompromising vision, his technical prowess and how he constantly challenged norms. And his personality, deeply passionate, articulate and totally committed to his art. He wasn't in it for fame or trends, he was in it to expand what music could be. Legacy-wise, it's huge. Cecil Taylor didn't just play jazz, he reshaped it, opened doors for improvisation, and left a mark that will last forever. If you really want to understand avant-garde jazz, you've got to start with Cecil Taylor. And that was some insight into the biography of Cecil Taylor, and you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. We're going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. Here's Cecil Taylor with Steps. You're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Cecil Taylor, his biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trending album news. Christian McBride is taking his music to the high seas. He's curating this week-long cruise called McBride's World at Sea, sailing January 20th to 27th, 2026 from Fort Lauderdale with stops in Jamaica and Grand Cayman. It's not just any cruise, it's like stepping into his musical universe. McBride's got this entire vision going on, mingling with his big band work, producing Lady C. Dinah Washington's tribute album, and collaborating with some of the hottest voices in jazz right now. We're talking Samara Joy, Lady C, Cecil McLaurin-Salvin, Joe James, and more, all performing live. And the cool part? These aren't just standard performances. You've got daily concerts, jam sessions and conversations with the artists and spontaneous collaborations. Basically, you get to see the magic behind the music up close. Some highlights. Lady C just dropped This Bitter Earth, produced by McBride, and his big band's new single Old Folks features Samara Joy. Plus his upcoming album Without Further Ado Volume 1 includes Salvant and Joe James. Imagine all of that happening live on the same ship. It's basically like your ultimate jazz festival but floating on crystal clear water. And McBride's not just leading one group, he's got four ensembles on deck. The Big Band, Inside Straight, Ursa Major, and a tribute set called Remembering Ray Brown with Benny Green and Gregory Hutchinson. McBride says it himself. All these new songs, albums and collaborations are like a sneak peek into what we are building at sea. A way to bring that world to life. A floating creative playground where you got to feel the energy of his musical universe firsthand. And that was some trending music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of Cecil Taylor's best albums of all time. Stay tuned. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Cecil Taylor, his biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of his best albums of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. First up, Jazz Advance, released in 1956. This is Taylor's debut, and already he's shaking up the jazz world. He's got Steve Lacy on soprano sax, Buell Needlinger on bass, and Dennis Charles on drums. What's wild is how he's blending hard bop with avant garde stuff, like he's reimagining Thelonious Monk's Bemsha swing in this totally new edgy way. And then you've got Charge and Blues, which is a little more straight ahead. 4/4, giving you a breather before he launches into these complex dissonance harmonies. His piano, aggressive, percussive, like he's drumming on the keys. The quartet is tight but daring. They're navigating these crazy time signatures together. It's challenging, yes, but completely compelling. Critics loved it, call it one of the most daring jazz debuts ever. Then fast forward a bit to Looking Ahead, released in 1959. Same rhythm section with Buell Needlinger and Dennis Charles, but now we've got Earl Griffith on vibraphone, which adds this shimmering, unique texture. Tracks like Looking Ahead and Toll are amazing examples of his composing skills, and the quartet interplay is gorgeous, intricate but spontaneous. And then Unit Structures, released in 1966. This is where it really gets amazing. The sextet now, Jimmy Leon's on alto sax, Andrew Cyril on drums and a few others. This album is a free jazz masterpiece. Atonal melodies, dense layers, intricate rhythms. Taylor is all about collective improvisations here. Tracks like Enter Evening and Steps are these mind-bending journeys. You really have to pay attention to catch everything, but if you do, it's immensely rewarding. Critics hail this one as a cornerstone of free jazz. It's intense, challenging and completely groundbreaking. So from Jazz Advance to Looking Ahead to Unit Structures, you see his evolution, from bold debut to more textured quartet work. And that was some insight into what's coming up during this hour, and you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back after that. Stay tuned. It's about Cecil Taylor, his biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of his best albums of all time. The first one's called Jazz Advance, released in 1956. This one is wild. First off, this isn't just some debut album where the guy is just finding his footing. You've got Steve Lacy on soprano sax, and that's already cool because hardly anyone was using the soprano sax in a modern jazz setting back then. Then Buell Needlinger is holding it down on bass, Dennis Charles on drums, just giving Cecil the space to unleash. The style? Imagine hard bop and then make it dissonant and throw in those jagged rhythms that almost feel like modern classics. It's got that bop swing, but Cecil is so percussive, like he's playing the piano like it's a drum kit with 88 tuned keys. Now the standout track here is Bemsha Swing. It's a Monk tune, right? But Cecil doesn't just play Monk, he rebuilds Monk. It's angular, it's off kilter, but it's still swinging. Then there's Change and Blues, which is like little nod to tradition, more digestible, but you can tell Cecil's itching to stretch a little further. Listening to this album can be tricky if you're expecting smoothness because it's not background jazz. You gotta lean in, let your ears adjust to the chaos and then it clicks. That's what makes it so fun. It's challenging, but when you get it, you really get it. And critics at the time, people call it one of the boldest jazz debuts ever. And honestly, it's like hearing the blueprint of free jazz before free jazz even had a name. So you've just wrapped up Jazz Advance, your brain's already kind of spinning from all the wildness, and then Cecil comes back in 1959 with Looking Ahead. And the title is perfect, because it really feels like he's peeking into the future of jazz, still keeping one foot in tradition. This time he brings in Earl Griffith on vibraphone, which is such a cool twist. Vibraphone in Cecil's world is like tossing a little shimmer and sparkle into all the jagged piano thunder. Buell Needlinger and Dennis Charles are back on bass and drums, so the rhythm section's solid as ever. But the vibes add this almost cool, dreamlike color to the chaos. It's like sharp edges with a glow around them. Musically, it's less confrontational than Jazz Advance. You can still feel Cecil pushing boundaries, but he's smoothing them out, just enough so you can ride the waves a little easier. Looking Ahead, the title track, is a bold statement piece. It's him saying, yes, I'm still moving forward. Then Toll. This one's like a sonic meditation, eerie but beautiful, with the entire group weaving around each other in this really fluid way. Performance-wise, Cecil's piano is still all fine percussion, but he's also giving space for everyone to shine. Griffith's vibes in particular, they float over Cecil's heavier chords like oil on water, which is what makes the entire thing feel less dense than it could be. Honestly, if Jazz Advance felt like a challenge, Looking Ahead is like an open door. It's more accessible, more inviting. Almost like Cecil saying, come with me, I'll show you where this music is heading. Critics definitely notice that balance, still experimental but cohesive and innovative at the same time. So if someone's curious about Cecil but doesn't want to dive straight into the deep end chaos of his latest stuff, Looking Ahead is the place to start. And now we're talking about unit structures released in 1966. Like Jazz Advance and Looking Ahead were already bold, but this is him saying, no more guardrails, let's go full free jazz. And it's on Blue Note too, which is wild because that label was known for hard bop and soul jazz. Cecil dropping this on Blue Note must have really made waves back then. So here's the setup. He's got a sextet, it's a monster lineup. Jimmy Leon's on alto sax. Leon's is basically Cecil's right-hand man for years. Andrew Cyril on drums, who becomes one of the greatest Avante Garde drummers ever. Plus other heavy hitters filling out the textures. It's less of a group playing tunes and more of a unit, hence the title, building these giant structures in real time. Musically, it's not about melody in the traditional sense. It's about textures, clusters, density, silence, and then amazing music. You've got these atonal lines, wild rhythmic shifts, and the feeling that everyone's improvising. Enter Evening is a perfect example. It feels like you're entering some surreal dreamscape, the entire group breathing as one. Then Steps, that's the climb, a layered ascent where these instruments seem to tangle and untangle constantly. Performance-wise, it's like each player is speaking their own language, but somehow together, they are building the same story. Cecil's piano is ferocious, clusters of notes like avalanches, but Andrew Cyril's drumming is just as crucial, constantly pushing, pulling, and reshaping the momentum. Now, in terms of listening experience, this was not easy listening by any stretch. You got to really commit. It's like stepping into a dense forest where every sound matters. But if you're willing to give it your attention, it's insanely rewarding, like unlocking an entire new way of hearing music. Critics and musicians still call unit structures a masterpiece of free jazz, and for a good reason. It basically gave permission for an entire generation to think, we don't need chords, we don't need swing tunes, we can just create sound worlds. So if someone wants to understand why Cecil Taylor is legendary, unit structures is the gospel. It's heavy, but it's historic. And that was some insight into some of Cecil Taylor's best albums of all time, and you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. We're going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. Here's Cecil Taylor with Sweet and Lovely. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Cecil Taylor, his biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trending music news. The Made in New York Jazz competitions announced their winners for 2024 to 2025. First off, this competition is seriously cool. It's the world's first online jazz contest. It's been running since 2013. Musicians from everywhere, over 70 countries can submit videos, thousands of jazz fans vote online, and a panel of heavy-hitter judges shortlist the best. And we are talking judges like Mike Stern, Lenny White, Randy Brecker, plus other amazing artists like John Lee, Wayne Escoffery, Manuel Valera, and more. That's just a jazz dream team right there. Now for the winners. First place went to Matteo Perfumo from Italy. His project is all about strong melodies that mix the familiar with the unexpected. He snagged 10% of the entry fees, a trip to the gala, and a spot on stage with top artists. Second place is Sedno. They're super high energy, blending electronic loops with live instruments, mixing jazz, techno, and world-class music. And third place goes to the Enrico Linosi quartet from the Netherlands. Guitar-led with piano, bass, and drums, they're all about mixing modern jazz with traditional styles. The winners get to perform at the 2026 annual Made in New York Jazz Gala alongside renowned jazz artists. Imagine that, an entire evening of fresh talent mixed with legends. Admissions for the next season open September, so musicians worldwide can throw their hat in the ring. Honestly, what's amazing about this competition is how it combines technology with tradition. Online submission, global voting, expert judging. It's like the perfect bridge between emerging talent and the jazz world's heavyweights. And that was some trending music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. We're going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about more of Cecil Taylor's best albums of all time. Stay tuned.